content like this, visit www.teamtroponin.com. This video is brought to you by First Attachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Join the First Attachment revolution.
What's up, guys? We are live with the Troponin episodes, episode 2. We are getting rolling. Dave and I were talking yesterday about some of the thought process of rolling into different shows and plans for competing for the year. And we wanted to jump off today's conversation thinking about the long term of what competing actually looks like. Dave, can you tell us, we were talking a little bit yesterday about, do you want to do the national show? What's kind of the long-term plan and your thought process for wanting to eventually turn pro?
Yeah, so I guess the little bit of backstory here is that my original plan with this competition season was to do this local qualifier in Austin and then roll into USAs. And I've got to qualify again anyway because I didn't place very well at junior nats last year. I think I got into shape, but it was competitive lineup and just wasn't big enough, wasn't good enough yet. So now that we're almost here, I'm strongly considering not doing USAs after all. And if I say the reason out loud, it almost sounds kind of shitty, but I have more of an explanation behind it. And the reason is that I just don't think that I can place super well or win. And my mindset for bodybuilding so far has been to basically see every prep and every show as kind of a stepping stone to the ultimate goal, which is to turn pro. And then, I don't know what beyond then, hopefully be competitive as a pro, but got to get there first. And so, having these really good preps, good in terms of getting into shape and getting very lean and depleted, has set the stage for like a 50+ pound gain in stage weight over 2 years, which has been awesome. But, again, I've talked before about how I love the process of this whole thing more than I care about the end result. And so if the end result is not going to be that ultimate goal, and competing costs money, it costs a lot of time and frankly, like emotional and mental investment. I'm just like, do I really want to suffer and put the rest of life on hold really for another 3 weeks? Or do I want to say, all right, mission accomplished as far as getting this prep done and getting super lean, and then dive back into the rebound in the off season and keep making progress? And I waffle on this a bit because there is also the part of you at the end of prep that is just completely fatigued. And I don't know anyone who doesn't feel this way at least a little bit. Like, your hormones are not where they should be. Your body is in a place it doesn't want to be. You just feel like absolute shit. And so the prospect of not having to do that for another 3 weeks is pretty enticing anyway. But, if I take a step back and look at it, just try to look at it purely logically. I don't see a huge reason to go and compete for the sake of competing, because competing is not what I love. Competing is like the end goal. So yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment.
Just as your wife and as your training partner too, one of the things that I think has been really telling over the last couple of weeks is progressively more and more, probably every week, I hear you say more frequently and more vehemently how much you just miss feeling like a tank when you're training. And that's kind of what you do, right? Like you throw plates on and you handle weights that make people in the gym, like everyone just kind of stops and turns and watches you. And for you love training so much that, again, just as your training partner, watching you struggle to like do the thing that is so just you at baseline is always really interesting. Yeah.
I can sympathize with that 100% because I feel the same way. Training was always the thing for me. It was the competition was, a way to show that work, but it was really, and even the competing was really more a way to improve the training because I knew what happened when I could start an off season from extremely low body fat. I'll kind of cover it from a couple angles, I think. One, I guess as a weird analogy is I would say, if you were a really good athlete at a large high school, a high school where typically only juniors and seniors would make varsity, and then maybe 1 or 2 sophomores each year in each sport would get moved up to varsity, but they weren't going to play. If you're at a school, 3,000 students, or down in Texas, even larger, and so you'd always hear the parents say like, well, I want them to play, but the thing is, study after study shows that those players that move up, even though they don't get the game time experience, are always dramatically improved as they age, and when they do play, from all the practice time and time spent at the higher level, even though they're not playing, because it's like the adage, you you play to the level you're playing against, and people do that all the time. A great team will play terribly against a terrible team because it's like you play down to their level. And I think a lot of it's hard to say how much of that carries over in bodybuilding, but bodybuilding is a stage sport. It's I don't know if you what you call it, a sport, a pageant, whatever, but that stage component does play a large role. And you don't get that at a local show where you walk through and you win the overall without even having to pose. You don't. And so, I don't know how important that component is, but it does play a role. And you can picture any Mr. Olympia lineup. When does who's confident, and who thinks they're winning the show. They hit the pose last, they make everyone wait for them. And then multiple guys will think they're in that position and they'll make each other do that. And you kind of command the stage. And without that time at that level, and if you're new to that really high level, you don't really, it's very unlikely you're going to have that the first time. I mean, no one does. Maybe Phil Heath, but by the time Phil Heath did the USAs, he had a year and a half of hype of everyone telling him he was the next Mr. Olympia, which is a different scenario, And I think you can have a pro physique that deserves to win a pro card and not earn that pro card 100% if you look like a novice or you look like it's your first time at that level. And I don't know where that comes, if that only comes from being there, or if you get that from the confidence of knowing your physique is at that level. So I'll say that. And then in Dave's case in particular, I think because if we weren't going to do the USAs from the start, we would have done the diet slightly different. He's going to be lean enough to win, the overall at his local show, and he'll be very lean, but it'll be 90-95% of what he would be 3 weeks later. There's going to be those last couple pounds, and I don't know how much that plays into the off-season boost also. But I agree also with him that when we've already discussed, I've said basically he's a pro bodybuilder except for lats and triceps. For the most part, he's got obviously pro legs, his back thickness is professional, his chest is professional, his shape, his waist, he's still got a tight waist, great abs. But he still has some of the remnants of a lifetime of being a powerlifter and basically a season and a half of being a bodybuilder. And so it's a tough call, and I can understand 100% where he's coming from. And that's a thing that there's no correct answer on, because on one hand you have, yes, he is lean enough to get a great rebound. He'll be qualified. He's done his job for this year. If we feel like it, we're not a shoo-in for a pro card. I think it'd be a long shot for a pro card, And so you get to start your off season earlier, and we know what he's done the last 2 off seasons. We're talking probably another 20-25 pounds of muscle, which at that point makes him a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So we know the next year he's coming in as 270 pounds, 265 pounds on stage, ready to win a pro card. But
that's cool to think about.
But there's also that aspect of how many times has someone been overlooked by being that 265-pound freak that no one knows, and you get, it's not impossible, because the way the calls go, you walk out in groups of 15 and there's always the one spot that has terrible lighting, and there's the guys on the end, and if they're not looking for you, you walk out in your first group for quarter turns for just straight comparisons, and you're on the far end with bad lighting and half the judges don't even know you exist. This happens every couple of years. Maybe it might have been like 5 years ago now, and I can't remember his name now. He was third callouts at USA's, I think, and then came back and won the overall North Americans, because everyone after USA was like, what the, because the judges just never looked at him at comparisons. He went and did his quarter turns. He was on the end. No one knew he existed. And he's in the back, row. No one even saw him when they're doing their numbers or call outs. And then he goes out for third call outs, and it's like, oh crap, everyone's like, everyone knew the judges screwed that one up. How did they miss him? And the poor, God, I wish I could remember his name, but the poor guy, did the whole prep and got screwed because no one was looking for him. And all it took was, if they were looking for him, they would have looked for him, but they weren't. And all it took was him being in that far end position with shit lighting, and he didn't get noticed. That would be my other word. So that's kind of my both side pros and cons double advocate. There's no right answer, and I think both answers are correct. So
I think with regards to what you mentioned with like coming out on stage, like kind of ready to own the stage too. I think some of that is personality too. And yeah. You have to have some sort of swagger when you come out there. Like, you have to come out there and act as if you've won, I think, and kind of carry that energy. And if you haven't put the time in to things like posing and visualizing what that needs to look like. And, you know, I've done some sessions with Kenny Wallach for posing, and even at the amateur looking to turn pro level, now working with him as a pro, looking at a pro stage, his detail and the level of detail for cues and just small tweaks here and there. And I don't know how much of a difference it plays, but I will tell you that, like, just the experience I have working with him even a little bit, it's truly a different, I mean, you really have to be up there and just kind of expect, like, they need to look at me. I deserve to be up here, and you have to come out there and kind of drink your own juice.
Yeah, and you can have that as a first time at that level. You can. I think it's more difficult if you have that as a, okay, I did say David does the USA's this year, and say he gets 7th and gets screwed as 7th. He's, you know, he gets second call out and he looks like he should be first place, second call out. For some reason, the judge don't like him. He gets 7th, and then there's like kind of a buzz on the internet, you know, like, you know, that Dave got screwed. That builds hype. Then the whole next prep, he's posting pics online. He's posting pics on www.teamtroponin.com, and you know, people are following his prep and like waiting for him to get on stage. And then he knows everyone thinks he got screwed last year. He knows he added 20 more pounds. He knows he's a front runner. Everyone knows he's a front runner. The judges follow all that stuff. They know he's a front runner. There's a lot to be said for that, as opposed to bringing the exact same physique with none of that hype.
And
but there's also no guarantee that you get that hype. You know?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Like, and this is probably a way in which bodybuilding is changed, obviously, with the advent of social media. But, you know, even now, like, what's the difference in hype generated by actually going, competing and doing the thing and having the judges' eyes on you in person versus, you know, posting gratuitously on social media? Can people generate that same kind of hype?
Well, I'll give you a clear-cut example. Ben Pollack was the most conditioned, I think, possibly the whole show, and definitely in the super heavies at his first pro qualifier. Was first call-outs, but was on the end of the lineup. You know, I think got 5th or 6th. Felt like he got screwed. Went back, did North Americans, which was maybe not the right call. Brought a fuller look, showed the judges something different. They did not like that at all. But there was hype that he got screwed, and he posted those pictures of him just inside out shredded online, you know, and all the replies of you got screwed. What happened the next year at the pro qualifier? And it's not like he brought a better package, but it's not like it was
Night and day,
25-pound muscle gain package, you know. And where was it? Clear cut, first place, won his class, no questions asked. And I don't know that same physique would have done that if that was his first pro qualifier, because a few things. He learned to pose better, like his rear double bi. He learned to, you know, present it better, and you don't really see that until you see all those stage photos. And you'll get some photos at the state level, but they don't let you take pics in the audience. There's always some local photographer that gets the rights to do the photos, and half of them aren't very good. And you know, who knows if you're going to get that same feedback. But that, to me, that's a clear-cut example of. And I remember even saying that to Ben at the time, you know, and I've said this to other people, you almost don't want to turn pro right out of the gate, because then no one knows who you are, and now you got to compete at the pro level. If you you almost want to get arguably screwed, you know. And when I say arguably screwed, everyone in the top 5, 6, 7, 8 looks pretty good, you know. And typically the placings are what they are. And guy who took 6th didn't get screwed in that he should have won the show. A lot of people think he got screwed because they thought he could have been in the top 5 or maybe 3rd, but that's all it takes to get that hype. And then you present a better version of that physique. It doesn't even have to be dramatically improved, but people see it was clearly improved, and they know that the thinking was that you got screwed last year, and the judges aren't impervious to that. I mean, humans are human.
How much do people actually look at competitors who are in the 2nd and 3rd callouts and go, oh, you know, this guy in 2nd callouts got screwed? Because, like, as a consumer, I look at first callouts. I don't even look at 2nd callouts.
Yeah, well, you don't, but the people who are friends, fans, and family of that person will post it online, and it gets around. And you know, the same 2nd call out, you're probably not, you know. But if often the first call out is not 5 people anymore, you know, it's usually 6, 7, sometimes 8, you know. So we still kind of think first call out is people get a medal at the end of the day, get to pose at the night show top 5, but really first call out is hardly ever just 5 people anymore.
Great.
And so it's, yeah, so I mean, first call out is basically, these are the people who came in shape and have the potential to turn pro in the near future. Is really, you know, it's basically people who nail their conditioning, you know, and also have, you know, good size. It's kind of a reward. And then that, you know, then the top 5 are the top 5, but that's, you get that first call out. And especially if you get that first call out and are in the top 5, you're like, your day's ruined. But it's oftentimes a blessing in disguise, because you end up getting more hype online than the person who took 4th and deserved 4th. You know, I don't know. I don't even remember who took 5th at Ben's at the USA's in 2000. Was that 19, 20? I can't remember what year it was anymore.
It's 20,
21.
20. Yeah, yeah, but I don't even remember who was 5th. I don't. No, Brandon Barrow was 4th. I mean, Nate Spear was 3rd again. Yeah, I mean, so you know, and that happens. There's like even names I don't remember, like the guy who got screwed 3rd call outs. I remember that happened. You know, I don't remember. I couldn't tell you who was 6th place in that show either. It's a weird phenomenon, but getting screwed is often the best thing. Getting screwed as an amateur at a pro qualifier is often the best thing for your career. If Nick Walker would have turned pro, his first pro show, he still would have been Nick Walker, but he wouldn't have been Nick Walker. Him not winning, everyone expecting him to win, thinking he got screwed. Then he comes back, makes a few refinements, and it was the fine tuning things, that because he used to look small when he posed. He didn't pose big. Something was wrong where he didn't look like Nick Walker, and he came back not carrying 20 more pounds of muscle, but somehow presenting it as though and then boom, then he's Nick Walker, and then that freight train's rolling, you know, and I don't think he would have been the same Nick Walker if he turned pro at his first pro qualifier. I think he would have turned pro, not had quite as much hype. And even worse, people might have said like, I didn't really think he deserved to win. I think he only won because of his name. And then, you know, then you do a pro show and you don't place well, and boom, that's it, you know?
Yeah. So then Dave, let me turn this around and kind of bring it back to you, you know, hearing those thoughts now and just looking and thinking about not only everything Justin's mentioned, but even just the day-to-day of, again, like the end of prep sucks. Like if you haven't done this before or done one of Justin's preps, you always come in condition. It's just what Justin does. It's, you know, but looking at Dave's face,
not enjoyable.
and even just Dave is someone who is incredibly energetic. There's really not a lot of lulls in his energy most of the time. And he's at a point now where like even just getting up is a task.
I kind of presented my argument as more that I thought Dave should do the USA's. That's not necessarily true. If your heart's not in it, you shouldn't compete. You'll get burned out, and you only have 1 or 2 of those before you're done with the sport. You know, I mean, if you don't love doing this, you know, it's like torture. You know, it's like, you know, if they starved you and worked you like this in a prison camp, it'd be against the Geneva Convention. You know, if they fed you nothing but fish, you know, like no fats, made you do hours of work a day, hours of heavy lifting a day, and almost no food, you know, with minimal sleep, it'd be a war crime, you know. And so you have to want to do that. If you don't, it's gonna feel like a war crime.
Yeah. Well, to throw another.
No, I just like having this conversation going. I'd love to know kind of where your head is at now, because I know where it was yesterday and earlier today.
I'll have to think about it. I've got to process the answer a little bit, but I mean, to throw another wrench in the works, there's the whole the job situation. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm still a software developer in my day job, and you know, you got to be mentally sharp. And Justin jokes about trying like just not to get fired during the last few weeks of prep, and it's kind of true when like you can't follow shit that, you know, 2 months prior was very easy. And
you're not getting a promotion in 2 weeks out of the show.
And I'm also in a process of maybe switching jobs, and I really wouldn't want to be brain dead at the beginning of a new job. So that's something that might impact the decision within, to be honest, in the next week or 2. So
well, I would say do the qualifier, see what happens. Plan on not doing the USA's. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's the right choice, but see what happens. You know, if you through qualifier, I don't know who the head judge is there. It might, if it is a national judge, or if one of the judges is a national judge, and they talk to you after the show and they say you got to do the USA's, I have you winning the USA's, then you revisit it. If you don't, if that doesn't happen, then then we go into off season, get big and strong.
One more kind of factor here. So let's say I thought, okay, I'm not going to do USA's this year, but then I'll make that the show next year, and partly because I think USA's is it's always the first pro qualifier of the year, right? In the US. So
first male pro qualifier.
Yeah,
I think some of the,
yeah. Junior Nats is a pro qualifier for every other division. I think Junior USA's is also, but so USA's is always July. Lately, it's the beginning of July, and then the one after that would be North Americans first.
North American,
Okay, and then there's North Americans, and then there's nationals in December. So I guess it's
Universe also.
Oh, that's
Universe,
right. Yeah. Well, Universe is not a qualifier for men's open, other than like a tested show. It's weird.
Yeah.
So do you ever see somebody kind of get screwed, so to speak, at the USA's or just not quite make it, and then come back and smash it at North Americans and nationals? And I think it happened last year, but I know it also kind of falls.
It happens all the time. The one guy that I can't think of his name for whatever reason that came back at North American, I believe. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, that's very, very common, and then that's you got that hype train rolling, and there's no chance for it to die down. So that's always beneficial.
I think that happened in the heavies last year with Eric Wood, came second at USA's to Jordan Hutchinson. I think he won his card at North Americans afterwards. But I know that's also in that range where it's kind of a sucky range to have to do a whole prep, and then you don't have really long enough for an off season, but I mean, I guess if you're at that point where you really are knocking the door of a pro card, then it's like you've really found a reason to suffer through it. But I guess is that something you'd even consider if you had a client?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that difficult. What we do is if you do the USA's, and then the USA's sucks because it's a 2-day show, but after the second show, if you're still alive, then you get to pick out that night, you pick out the next day, and then we usually give you anywhere from 3 to 5 days of really high calories with clean food, and then we get back into a diet again. So it's almost like the week before USA's isn't really totally a diet, because you get a couple days of higher food intake, and then you get like a full week of being completely off the diet as far as caloric content, and then you probably bring the cardio down, and you get another week with quite a bit of cardio drop, and then at that point you got like 3 or 4 weeks of work again. So it's really not.
Is it that close? I was thinking USA's July. North Americans is
September.
Yeah, it's like 6 weeks, I think.
Oh, is it that close? I was thinking it wasn't like till November.
Yeah, I think it's 6 usually, but
North American is
we can check. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's we have.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That. Yeah.
This year the North Americans is August 31st, so that's like 7 weeks after USA's, I think.
Yeah, so it's always, because I've had this several times, and it's like you get that first week after USA's where you're not really dieting, and then the week before the North Americans where you're just peaking, and then there's like a month of diet again. But that first week of the diet is almost no cardio, so it's really only like 3 weeks of hard dieting again.
Okay, gotcha. Well, gotta get to think about again.
So the North Americans really come along. It wasn't that long ago where I used 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, probably, I used to argue against North Americans, because I'd say, if you want to compete, if you want to become an IFBB pro, North Americans is the way to get there. But if you want to compete and win IFBB pro shows, they're all nationals and USA winners. And for a long time, the only real North Americans pro card that I could remember doing really well was Dexter Jackson way back in '96. But that's really changed, and North Americans it's not that way anymore. It's kind of, and I think we've discussed this. USA's seems to be like a chance where if you're unknown and inside out shredded, you can kind of come in and sneak your way in. Nationals seems to be where the big hype name of the year makes their showing, and the North Americans tends to be like your best chance to get a legit fair shot, especially if you made a statement at USA's and maybe didn't, maybe could have placed higher, but didn't.
Yeah.
So North Americans is a great show now.
Danny, I think this is relevant to both of us, but you should probably take the wheel on this one. So we're talking about injuries that happen during prep. How do you recover from them? Do you wait until a given tissue muscle is back to 100%, or do you train around it, train through it? What's your general approach?
I think it depends a lot on the athlete, right? You could take you and I, and we're very different examples of this. And I think, from the histology science standpoint, you have to think about what tissue is actually injured, right? So someone actually asked me on social media, how would you handle X injury? Or can you talk about what you did for your adductor? And what I'm doing, what I did for my adductor tendon is very different from how I would handle a muscle strain. So I think that especially when you're training through prep, it's more than just injury, right? Like you have to split hairs a little bit and kind of come back to, okay, well, what is the injury? Is the injury tissue? Is it a mechanical issue? If it's tissue, is it muscle? Is it tendon? Is it joint related? Is it a compressive force related? What's the actual mechanism, right? So, for me, I'm dealing with a lot of tendon issues, and that's a lot different than a muscle issue similar to what you're dealing with right now. Where muscle in general is going to be, you're going to respond really well to blood flow. And oftentimes you can kind of optimize your stance, you can optimize your mechanics to actually improve the area. So what a lot of people don't think about is the fact that because muscle is so highly vascular, you have to get blood flow to that area to help that inflammation cycle from the injury actually start to clear. That inflammatory process is so beneficial, but you have to be able to kind of flush in and out of that area. Tendon, on the other hand, is very different. It's not vascular. So it doesn't have that same opportunity to have, that inflammatory cycle flush so much as it does remodel. So I think that, with regards to training through injury or around injury, like it's going to happen to you, right? And very likely to happen during prep as you're getting drier, as you're getting leaner, as you're getting more fatigued, because as fatigue accumulates systemically, there are a lot of studies that show that as fatigue accumulates, your ability to coordinate small muscle groups for stability decreases. And decreased stability is very often one of the things that will contribute to poor mechanics in a way that's going to probably lead to injury. So, I think one of the things that you and I have both looked at is, number one, implement, right? Like you always want to choose an implement that's going to be more stable than less, and really optimizing your mechanics. So if we think about your injury, you had that kind of TFL strain throughout prep. This is actually really interesting. Throughout prep, as your fatigue increased, you kept kind of widening your stance out on things. And as you widen your stance, it's going to change the rotation at the hip joint and change the pelvis position. And as you change the relative degree of torque and or internal external rotation at the hip, you're going to influence what's happening at the TFL. Now, can we pull that back to mechanics? Yes, but ultimately it's still an issue of fatigue and stability. So I think even before you had that tweak, I kind of noted like, dude, like you're widening out.
Yeah, well, part of the reason I was widening out on quad movements is also just because I have really long femurs. I've been able to build, big legs that still make them look big, but I was like, I always have to get my adductors bigger. That's been my mindset for like the last 2 years. Like I just have to have these ridiculously big adductors.
Yeah, because they're not big
enough. They're never big enough. And so I was like, well, wider stance, more adductor, which is kind of true to a point. But I think I took that a little too far. And I think that, the tweak also happened not long after we introduced AIs, which I only ever take during prep. And so I feel like that's, if anything, as much as I was able to progress training really well, like the first 2/3 of prep, I think the smartest approach may have been to take more of a preventative approach for like the last third or so of prep and just modify things, like not huge modifications, but if I know that I'm going to get drier, hormones are going to change, and I'm going to be less stable, I probably should have, changed parameters a little bit, like done more tempo work, moved rep ranges around, done something so that stability is less of a likely cause to an injury.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I've had to do. The last couple of weeks we come into our leg day and you've kind of asked me what my plan is, and I've had a change in my protocol that's dragged me out pretty hard the last, couple of weeks. And, I think that in talking with you every time I say, hey, like, can I just do some pumpy work instead of something like a balls out top set followed by, a 20 repper. And your answer has always been yes. And I think that what a lot of people need to remember is that you're only the last 6 weeks of prep, you're not going to get any bigger. You're probably not going to get any smaller. You're only going to get more injured or more fatigued. And it's really a question of, can you make it across the finish line without like, limping across basically?
Yeah, I think
like deja vu with that, because that whole like, am I doing enough? And that's the whole thing with contest prep is brutally hard, but so it's easy to get lost in the woods and think that that's what contest prep is. How hard can you work? How much can you suffer? It's not true. It just so happens that suffering, what's required, I think we said landing the airplane last time. What's required to land the airplane is very sufferingable, but it doesn't. But it's a component of it. It's not, the suffering isn't the sport. Landing the airplane is the sport. And yeah, and then the AIs should have backed off latent prep. It's like I'm having deja vu of just hearing that, because I feel like every podcast I've ever done has had, or every discussion I've ever had with a client has that, and it's so hard, because the mindset you have to have in prep is such that it's incredibly difficult to kind of switch that at the very end of prep, when everything else is getting harder. Calories are getting lower, cardio is getting harder, energy is getting, everything else feels more difficult. But now I'm supposed to change that thought process with training with weights only. Everything else still remains more difficult, continues to be more and more suffering. But it's very difficult.
I think I've kind of like adopted this mindset, like a productive mindset, more so this prep though, because most of the year just even the idea of taking it like a deload or an easy week is just like anathema to me. I hate it. And most of the time I have the energy and zeal for training that I don't really need it that often. But at the end of prep, like there does come a point where like even I will be like, okay, I could use a break from training this damn hard if I have to do this much cardio and eat this little and feel this shitty all the time. And if anything, it just kind of mentally rejuvenates me, so that I know, a month from now or whenever I'm get back into off season, I'm really going to be ready to hit it hard. Because
I think you just like kind of touched on why it's so difficult though, because in the off season you won't take those deloads because you have the energy. And so it's, your brain is thinking that, I need this deload in prep, but your brain is also saying, does that mean I'm not going to win? Am I not working hard enough now? And it's so hard. That's why you need a logical brain somewhere in the equation to kind of walk you through, off the ledge on those things.
Yeah. But on that note, as far as okay.
I think that that's one of the biggest assets we've been able to give each other during prep, and prepping at the same time, is like kind of being in the throes of it and knowing, and understanding right in that moment where your brain is at. So like when you come in and you have that tweak and you're like, God, my legs are going to look small. I'm going to look flat on stage and my quads are going to wither away. I think you kind of joked about the other day, as your training partner, I understand where your mindset is at with that. And I think that's where it's really, really important, where you mentioned having someone who's got a logical brain with you, Justin. Like, I think that's probably the most important training tool anyone can have, is a training partner who understands like where you're at. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Danny's pulled me back from doing stupid things a couple of times, but I think
that's
yeah, exactly. We're okay at that.
But I mean, like, we're talking about the different mindsets at play here, and I think the mindset towards training maybe needs to change a little bit during those last 6 weeks as well, because I think a performance-oriented mindset and obsession with progressive overload will take you very far most of the year, and I think that I attribute that to my progress as far as the training is concerned. But those last 5, 6, 8 weeks, whatever, all that really matters is that you preserve the look that you're going to have on stage, because that is the end goal. And so, Danny had to remind me a few times, like, okay, no, your quads aren't going to wither because you're not loading them like crazy in the lengthened position like you do in a hack squat. Like, you can preserve your quads with these other 3 exercises that you can still smash just fine.
So you're still training with weights, you're still eating, you're still on supplements, and it's only a few weeks. It's difficult. I mean, Dorian Yates, admits he could have extended his career, and he basically artificially shortened his career by not accepting that. And it's just very difficult, because what does everyone say when they won a show, or when they lost the show? When they won, they say, I left everything on the, everything in the gym. I did everything I could. And so it's hard not to associate everything you could with training as heavy and hard as you can. Everything you could really means everything you could do to land a plane properly, which in this case means backing off the training. But it doesn't feel that way when everything else continues to get harder throughout prep. And that's actually, I think, the next question, actually, we got someone asked what it would be, what they ask, how to become a bodybuilding coach and building knowledge for coaching. And then, and what you'll see, like people like Sean Ray will always say, like, why do you need a coach? I never needed a coach. And the thing is it's never a knowledge thing, or rarely, and most of my clients are coaches themselves. It's very rarely a knowledge thing. It's two things. There's two types of people. There's the type of people like David who will work too hard unless there's someone to kind of, like, your best clients are ones basically what you're doing as a coach is pulling them back from the ledge, and then the other ones are, why do you need a coach? Because no one can self-evaluate or self-assess. What happens? Everyone gets off stage and they didn't win and they should have won and they can't understand why they didn't win. Well, you know who can? Your coach, because I can tell exactly why you didn't win. It is clear as day, and we need to fix those things. And that's really why, because if you can't tell why you didn't win, you're never going to get yourself in the condition to actually win, or because people just are, people are usually one of two ways. Usually one, they never think they look as good as they do, and they're the ones who will make themselves look worse by just burying themselves, or the people who think they should win every show they've done. And those are the people who are never going to win if they coach themselves, because they won't ever get themselves in shape. That wasn't really the question. The question was how to become a bodybuilding coach. Where do you get the knowledge? And that's, I think, perfect for us, because we have a website that has all the knowledge to become a bodybuilding coach, teamtroponin.com. It's a monthly membership. It's hundreds of hours of footage. We detail everything. We detail all the way down, including final week plans, how to prep for a show, everything you want. But that's the problem. There is no information. What I was told people is the best thing to do is get a college anatomy and physiology book and a human digestion book or something, which is boring as hell, but that's what you need. You're not going to learn anything. There are no performance nutrition books. You need to understand how the body works so you can solve problems when you're coaching someone from first principles, which we've done in quite a few of the videos on Team Troponin. We've actually taken issues that we might not even know the answer to, but because we understand how the body works, we can work from the ground up from first principles and create the answer. And that's really what it is. You need a resource like that, whether it's teamtroponin.com, whether it's scouring the internet for hundreds of hours and spending way more money than you would joining teamtroponin.com, or even joining one of the other subscription websites. The problem is the information on the internet is wrong, and it's almost by definition wrong, because let's see, where are you getting it? You're getting it from someone, Mike Heavypex on some forum. I should say that because there actually was a guy named Mike Heavypex on Anabolic years ago, and he was a cool guy. But some guy named, like Big Dick Bob, he's giving you, and he's telling you, I did this, and this, and gained 30 pounds and lost fat, but you never see his pictures. And he's been posting on the same forum or the same Facebook group or the same Instagram stuff for years and years and years. So if his stuff worked, he wouldn't be Big Dick Bob on Facebook. He would be the guy who just won USA's. And since he's not, whatever he's saying hasn't been working for him. And the same thing, if someone is a coach and is giving you that information for free, and not like we're getting it for free, as a discussion, they're trying to force it on you or offer it to you, that means it doesn't work, because if it did work, they'd be charging for it. And so that leads to all the garbage you see about contest prep. The stuff, you cut no sodium for 6 weeks before the show. You got to use 10,000 diuretics. You got to, all these things that it's like are laughably wrong, and they just become like almost dogma or like gospel for prep for people who don't really know about prep. And it's great as a bodybuilding coach, because everyone who tries to do it on their own from information they get for free on the internet doesn't get in shape. And so when they come to you, you do all things correctly, which ends up being everything's differently than they were doing before. But I mean,
they'll
that's
tell
really
you you're wrong. Then,
of course. Because the guy at the gym told them that, you know, he needs to use the tanner and burn the night before the show to burn that top layer of skin off.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I heard someone was told they shouldn't brush their teeth for the last 6 weeks before the show because the sodium and sodium fluoride.
Oh my God.
Gross.
Yeah, I mean, you know, all the things that, like the sodium thing though is like pervasive. It's crazy because no coach cut sodium, and they haven't forever. You know,
You still have people
time,
thinking that they need to eat Mrs. Dash because.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's really weird how it's like how that works because. And it's because of that phenomenon. It's because the only people who are tossing out that information are the ones who are doing it wrong. Because if they were doing it right, they'd have reached a point where they're not anonymous on the internet, or they don't offer free information anymore. And so that's really, So if you want to be a bodybuilding coach, you have to find. Troponin.com is a resource that will get you everything you need. I'm not saying there are other resources also, but you need to go out and search for information like that, or work with a coach and study what they do and ask questions. And ask enough questions until you can start answering them yourself.
I think beyond that too is like, I realize how interdisciplinary it is, right? To where like, we even think about everything from the nervous system, right? So as a PT, thinking about contest prep from the programming and injury management standpoint, there are a lot of nutritional concepts involved with that. And I get a lot of people ask me like, hey, like, how do you do what you do working with barbell athletes, working with bodybuilders, not having to, you know, write Medicare notes in a clinic anymore? And while everyone on the internet wants to use really big words and make it sound like they've got it put together, it really comes down to, do you understand the basics of physiology, and can you lateralize them and apply them in a way that is, quite frankly, practical lab work? And if you're not living that and you're not absorbing every bit of information you can, that's a problem. So I talk to a lot of coaches who will program for clients, and there are a lot here in Dallas who will program for clients and try to do, you know, this injury management stuff, but can't think about that next level. So there's a guy here who, just as an example, I've talked a lot about the use of intensity techniques in rehab, because it allows you to still accrue stimulus and allows you to do it in a way that improves tissue tolerance, and basically get you better while still getting stimulus for hypertrophy. And he was like, oh, you know, I tried the overhead press, you know, intensity technique, and it didn't get any better. And it's like, well, did you actually think about what the problem is? Because if it's a mechanical problem, doing something to improve tissue tolerance isn't going to improve the mechanics. So even from the programming standpoint, whether you're writing programming or you're doing nutrition, you have to be able to lateralize concepts and think about how to truly apply them. And if you're, again, not living that in a practical lab work type everyday scenario, it's really, you have to be able to think about the next step.
Mm-hmm. I think another component, I can't believe I'm the one saying this, but you have to empathize with people. Like, your clients are not robots. Well, I'm not a robot, but yeah, I mean, I don't train a lot of competitors, but I mean, in just giving training to anyone, competitor or not, like, everyone's going to respond to different direction a little bit differently. And I mean, Justin, I find your plans to be pretty straightforward, but even you, I'm sure, like, you motivate people differently based on personality, sex, plenty of factors.
I'm a completely different coach depending on the person. I think some of my, my responses to your guys' check-ins versus the responses to, I can think of several very high-level competitors. You would think they were working with a different coach as far as the way the email response. I mean, the diet will be the same, but the way it's presented is, you know, there's like the nurturing version. There's the, you know, let's effing do this, and there's the, you know, here's, you know, boom, 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 let's get it done. You know, there's like the whole range, you know, and really you have to tailor it for the person. But there are, I mean, yeah, there's totally different, you know, the diets are the same, but the email responses couldn't be more different from one extreme to the other.
And like, just in working with people, I've really had to adopt that over the years, because my first thought was like I am pretty robotic. And so I almost get angry at the thought that I can give people a perfect set of instructions, and it's in any way my fault that they didn't follow them perfectly. But it is still my fault, because people are people, and they're like, you can't just assume that they're going to do everything the way that you thought it out and the way that you presented it, no matter how you present it.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, this is maybe not how to become one, but if once you do become one, you have to, it's like the landing the ship thing again. There is, you know, the person is a person. You can guide that person. You know, there's a path that they'll be able to take, and you can guide them through there and get the best outcome for that person. That doesn't mean it's the best possible outcome, because the best possible outcome might be outside of what they're capable of doing. You know, some people you just can't ride so hard, or you know, and that's outside of your control how far the competitor can get. You know, you can only guide them as far as they'll allow themselves to go based on how, you know, mentally weak or mentally strong they are, or driven they are, or outside circumstances. But your job as a coach, I think what I think is a good coach is if you're someone who doesn't cherry pick clients. You know, I mean, it's tough to say what's right. I don't cherry pick clients. I have no requirements other than you want to work hard and you want to do it with me. I really don't. And I get more joy out of taking out of the large number of clients, I think, over the years who no one knew who they were. We started working together. 3 years later, they've gained 50 pounds, and now they're, you know, competitive on the national scene or at the professional level, as opposed to only taking people who are already at the, you know, the top national scene or pro level. You know, it's just very different worlds. But someone like you two, who are intensely driven, have a very clear goal and focus and drive and know where you want to go, is different than someone who used to be 220 pounds and, you know, needs skin removal surgery and has never worked out before, but wants to do their first competition, you know. And what gets you to be the best possible outcome for you is totally different than them, because they're not going to suffer like you guys are suffering. They don't know that. They only know eating what took them to 200 plus pounds and needing skin removal surgery. They don't know. So it's a huge leap to expect that. So there's only, you know, I think that's a big thing that is knowing, you know, tailoring your coaching for the client, you know. And you see a lot of coaches don't, obviously, because everyone's seen other coaches' programs, you know, and coaches seeing that it's the same program or the same wording or the same, not even that's, you know, it might be customized, not even that it's the same as far as same by numbers, but the approach is the same, you know.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that as a coach too, people are emotional beings, and every time that we interact with a client, there's an emotional response on their end. So every one of my clients every week gets a Loom video, and Dave laughs. He's like, "Do you really feel like you have to do this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because this is the framing for how the rest of the week is presented." And kind of like you, there are some people who I can say like, "Hey, go crush it this week. You know, I know this sucks, but you can do this." And then there are other people you almost have to like nurture and kind of coddle a little bit. But how you present the information is almost always going to be a player in how well the plan is executed.
Well, this kind of leads into another topic, Justin. I mentioned you had text a few days ago, as far as like a coaching point or something that maybe some coaches do differently. But I want to talk about when you pull growth hormone before a show, why you do it, and maybe some of the mistakes that other people do. Because I know some people will pull it like 2 weeks, which is way premature. And so yeah, what's your approach here?
Yeah, well, I think if you go first principles, like why are we pulling it? Well, because it causes water retention. Everyone knows that. You know, that's one of the byproducts of growth hormone. It affects sodium balance. You know, when you first start taking it, you fill out really quickly, get really watery, but you fill out. Well, so if you see people cut it out 2 weeks or 10 days, you know, the half-life of growth hormone is several hours. You know, if you do sub-Q, I think it's like 6 hours. I don't know. The full, you know, and that's the big thing. Is we have a couple of videos on Team Troponin also.com that we work through half-life and what that actually means, because people think half-life means how long it's in the system. That's not at all. Half-life means how long until it's half broken down by the body. And we did an example with Clan on at teamtroponin.com, where we show how if the 2 on 2 off protocol is basically useless. Did I freeze?
No, you're good.
Did I lose you guys?
Nope.
You're still there.
Okay, sorry. I was all frozen on my screen. But you do the 2 on 2 off, and the second day off, you still have the full dose of the first day because of the 35-hour half-life. So you have to consider all that. The half-life for growth hormone means that basically by day 2, it's out of your system. Okay, so it's out of your system now. Now what happens? Now your body starts affecting the levels of sodium in the body. So by day 3, you've done that. By day 4, that's over. Now your body is flushed with sodium. what remains, the intramuscular fullness is probably still there on day 4. So what I recommend is on a Saturday show, we cut it out. The last dose will be Tuesday morning, 4 days before the show. So Wednesday, it's out of your system. Thursday, we're carbing up. We still have a little bit of water. We fill out real well. Friday, it's been out of your system. Your body is adjusted to sodium. We dry out now that day. You're able to dry out. Saturday, you hold that. You still have that fullness, but we've lost all the water. If you pull it out 2 weeks out, that, you pull it like a Saturday 2 weeks out, then Sunday, it's out of your system. Monday, you start flushing sodium. Tuesday, you completely flush sodium, but you still have fullness. By that next Friday, which is still a week out, but you're still over a week out. Now you're losing the intramuscular fullness. So,
and I guess this might be a more general question, just what does water look like versus what is fat? But is there anything specific in that with regards to GH when you're thinking about that? Like, does GH cause any kind of certain water distribution pattern where you can say, okay, that's retention from growth hormone versus this is retention from, I don't know, some other factor?
well, I mean, like water just in general will just be a full, like it's the same everywhere. There's no pockets. Like if you look at like someone's wrist will look watery, or their ankles. There's just like a layer everywhere, and that's the part that's kind of sodium related. That goes like that starts flushing out, 36 hours after your last dose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean fat is very watery, and you'll have pockets of fat, and those pockets will be more watery. But like with the GH, you just kind of it's that thick skin, basically, people talk about. It's really just evenly distributed water all through the skin.
Right. I've even heard a couple of coaches say throughout the years that they don't like their clients to use GH during prep at all because it blurs those lines and I guess makes things harder to gauge, which I can kind of understand, but I feel like it's such a benefit to a prep.
It's a tough one. No, there's a whole can of worms, because part of the reason everyone talks about the late 90s bodybuilding, and they weren't as lean as modern bodybuilders, but their skin was thinner. It's a really tough call, and that would be a whole podcast. But the doses used back then were much lower, much shorter periods, and they got kind of all the bodybuilding benefits of GH, but none of the bodybuilding detriments, like the look, the acromegaly look, the widened waist, that thing where your ribs kind of separate from your intercostals. You start, because of the nerve compression, you get that weird forearm thing. Everyone loses their forearm muscle here. The triceps start atrophying. They get that weird turnip quad look where their adductors are enormous and they start losing their quad sweep. And I think all those things are related to the nerve compression, basically systemic carpal tunnel that comes from all that water retention from the growth hormone. And also you get like the soft tissue growth with the hands, the feet, their face, and everyone kind of has a little bit different. But that kind of changes your proportions. Your joints get bigger, your waist kind of gets thicker, your knees get thicker, your feet get bigger. You see a lot of flat. If you look at a lot of top bodybuilders' feet, they'll have like really flat feet, which is, I think, correlated to that. So it's a tough call because there's benefits and then there's clear non-benefits, all those side effects, the acromegaly side effects. But it's how you're going to present it. If you're going to someone trying to turn pro, and I'm going to say, hey, look, if we do 4 weeks of GH for 12 weeks before the show, you get all the benefits, none of the side effects, but you're not going to be as heavy on stage. Or you can take 10 IUs year round, and you're going to weigh more on stage, but you'll get these side effects. People just they focus on it's a tough decision to make, but I think overall, the fact that GH has become so affordable and easy to get has been a detriment to bodybuilding. But it's like, Pandora's box, once it's open, it's hard to pull it back, because how are you going to tell anyone, because guys, Dorian Yates was the mass monster at 260 pounds at like 5'10", 5'11". That's not even a mass monster at the USA's anymore.
Right.
I competed 15 years ago at 265 pounds with, guys my height, like Steve Kokolo, my height now is 290 on stage. And isn't considered. I mean, he's a large guy, but he's not like a Kai Green type mass monster, or a Big Ramy mass monster.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is because of the growth hormone. So you're going to argue with someone, you're going to say, hey, don't do the growth hormone. You're going to look like Kevin Lebroni, and you're going to be 235. 235 doesn't cut it on stage anymore. You can see what Kevin Lebroni looked like when he came back. And he didn't look that dramatically different than when he competed, but he looked dramatically different in comparisons.
Makes sense. Oh, here's a good one. So Paul Barnett touched a little bit on this in one of his recent videos, just talking about his personal experience with his preps and his rebounds. And he mentioned that he often had trouble controlling his blood glucose post show. And I think he attributed a lot of that to like kind of a lot of the electrolyte manipulation that happens around the show and how electrolyte balance or imbalance can affect your blood glucose. So do you find that this is a problem for a lot of people for that reason? And how
yeah, and we just Paul and I just just discussed that a day or two ago. Actually, we had a whole discussion about it, not on this, just like as coach client.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you get so dry, you get so dehydrated, so dry. Part of that is your blood sodium is lower. Not your blood sodium concentration is the same, but when you're dehydrated, your blood sodium is always 0.9% sodium. That's what your body has to maintain. You know, that's what it's always trying to maintain. And so when you get dehydrated and you have half as much, let's just take an extreme example. You have, a bucket of water at 0.9% sodium. Now you remove half that water, and that bucket is still at 0.9% sodium. You have half as much sodium in the body. So you are low sodium no matter what, just from drying out. Even if you don't, your sodium concentration stays the same. And so what you need sodium to store glycogen. That's the carrier for glycogen. And one of the classic signs of low blood sodium, of hyponatremia, is elevating blood sugar levels. And so it's a perfect storm. You do the show, you get extremely dehydrated. And with Paul, with Paul, because he gained so much, he gained like 50 pounds in a year. I wanted to make sure there was absolutely no way of saying, yeah, you gained 50 pounds, but you weren't as hard on stage. So we probably pushed the dryness too hard with him. We probably 3 to 5 pounds drier than he should have.
He was impressively dry.
Yeah, and he still is 3 days, a week after the show, and so, but that's a tough one, because when someone gains that much size, if he's not super bone dry, then it's easy to get the knock. Well, yeah, you gain weight, you didn't come in as hard, but that's the problem. So we get so dry, even though the blood sodium concentration is the same, there's so much less sodium. And then after the show, we add all those calories back in. There's all those carbs. Okay, so carbs mix with water to form, and the sodium carries them as glycogen. So we add all the carbs. We're trying to add water, but we were way down in water and way down in sodium, and the carbs are going way up, and we're trying to bring those up. We just reach a state where there's all these carbs, and the body can't store them as glycogen. And so what happens? The blood sugar starts climbing. So it's a process that takes like weeks, really, to clear.
Okay, I was going to ask if there's really anything that you can do in the shorter term to attenuate it, like. Right when I come off stage and we just did finals and I won or I didn't, should I pound some salt water? Is it going to make any difference? Or
yeah, it will. I mean, but it's still going to be a process, because it's like you've dried out quite a bit, and you don't realize how dried out you are, because it's not just drying out like we dry out. Like my guys, typically we just dry out on Friday is the only day we really focus on drying out, and so it feels like, well, it's only one day of drying out, but it's not, because that whole prep you've been losing water, that off-season fullness, the off-season excess water, the fat is very watery, and so you're holding pounds and pounds and pounds of less fluid before we even start drying out for the show. You're just dramatically, drier, period, than you are in the off season, like 10, 20 pounds at times, and then you dry out another 5 to 8 pounds. You might be 30 pounds of water. I mean, that's a lot. That's an assload of water. That's 8 pounds per gallon. So we're talking like almost 4 gallons of water that you're deficient in. And a proportional amount of sodium, because your body's kept your blood sodium at the same percentage, and so that's a lot. And then we go through all that, and then we go right back to off-season levels of carbs with 30 pounds of less water and a proportional less amount of sodium to work with. And so there's only so much you can do. You can take insulin, and insulin's going to try, but same thing. If there's no sodium, there's only so much it can do. So really, what we do is even metformin. I mean, what we recommend is metformin, and then berberine, specifically suppressor from First Detachment Nutrition, is the best you can do to get that ball rolling. But you just need to hydrate, And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of I don't like reverse dieting where people keep the calories low. I like to keep the food clean, but I like to get ahead of the game and bring the food and water and everything really high, and try to get you a little overly bloated and watery, even a little, with some edema even, which people, a lot of people don't like. You do all that work to get in shape and then you blur it like a week after the show, but I think for longevity and long-term health, it's really necessary. You need to find a way to get that 30 pounds of water back on the body. And you don't want to get 30 pounds of water back on the body in 3 days. You're like get flash pulmonary edema or something, but you want to get there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
As quickly as possible while, from a healthy way.
Right. Without jacking your blood pressure into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
But on a related note, I was thinking about this the other day, just how, aside from the dryness, just being contest lean is it's not a sustainable state. Obviously, it's not healthy. And it's not healthy, I think, aside from the diet that it takes to get there. It's just not a healthy state to be in, period. So obviously you want to keep people lean, almost as lean as possible after the show, just so you have runway for the off season. But like, to what degree do you think it's good to gain some fat back in terms of
there is optimal level? I mean, you can, there's studies on it, and when I say optimal for anabolism, you can find when the male hormone levels are most optimized. And part of the reason why male testosterone levels have plummeted in the last 50 years is because men's body fat levels have the opposite of plummeted. They deplummeted. We're all fat as shit now. You look at pictures of people from the 50s, 60s, even 70s. You look at a beach photo, and every once in a while they'll pop up on like Facebook or whatever, like a wide shot. Everyone's lean. Everyone. And so the male body is most anabolic, meaning they produce the most testosterone, they aromatize the least amount of that testosterone to estrogen in roughly the 8 to 12% body fat range. If you're on anabolics, it probably goes down to 6%. You get above 12%, and we've discussed this on multiple videos on Team Troponin. I think, I don't know that we have it on YouTube yet, but like a clear example of this is everyone has had buddies in their 20s who are really obese. They're in their 20s, they've clearly gone through puberty, but they have almost no chest hair, minimal beard, maybe most like a neck beard kind of deal, and a lot of times we'll have like kind of like gyno, but not gyno, like just a fatty distribution in the breast, not like the hard tissue gyno growth. And the reason for that is because they have, their body fat is so much above 12% body fat that one, they produce less testosterone, and two, much more of the testosterone they produce aromatizes to estrogen. And so there, so there is a range. And so the opposite though, coming out of a show, we're not that high end range, we're in that low range. We're way below 8%. And so the same thing, we are not optimized. No, it's different if you're not, on PEDs because you're kind of artificially supplying them, but the way the body functions is still the same in general. Your body's still, not trying to pump out hormones, not aromatizing things properly. And so you actually want to get in that 8 to 12% body fat range. And that's why the post-contest rebound is so glorious, because you're in this state where to become optimally anabolic, you actually need to gain body fat. And so I say, most of the off season, you're gaining size and you're trying not to add any body fat. Imagine how big you could get if you can gain 10 pounds of fat or 15 pounds of fat and still be lean, and that's what you get with a rebound. And I think I don't remember if I'm on the same topic anymore, but yeah, that's, that's why it's not healthy to be lean. You're just not, if you just take humans evolved, the way we evolved would be, we are most optimal for surviving, being able to hunt, producing the most testosterone, being most virulent and able to reproduce, have, the least aromatization estrogen, all those things in like the 8 to 12% body fat range. And so when you're under that, it's just as not optimal as being above that. Obviously we supply the hormones if we're on PEDs, but the physiological aspect of our bodies don't change.
Right. Danny, I think this is another good one for you that someone submitted to you. It's very broad. Are back injuries the nail in the coffin for trading, obviously?
That's funny. I got this question on social media, and it was something I actually was on a call with John Rivas about, just talking about Team Troponin stuff and getting him, logging on the site, things like that, which is going to be really fun to follow. But I think he brought it up too, and I don't remember in what context, but he was talking about, back injuries being like, oh, the big scary one that you never want to have. And I just told him, as a PT, there's nothing I'd rather treat than a back injury, because there are so many things that we can do to manage it. And because there's so much research to support so many different diagnoses. And the nice thing about, not the nice thing, obviously I don't want anyone to have, back injuries, but I think back injuries, more than almost any other injury, truly are multifactorial, in that you have the neurological, biomechanical, and the psychosocial components that all have to be wrapped up into treatment. And so if you think about it, anytime you're treating an injury, if you can get a little bit of change from one thing, that's helpful. But if you can get a little bit of change from a lot of things, that additive effect almost always provides a better long, like, kind of runway to make progress with. So I think the thing with back injuries is, like, yes, they're very scary. I think the person that asked this question actually asked, like, should I not deadlift anymore? And I think, again, there's nothing as a PT I'd rather treat than a back injury. It just comes down to figuring out how to be smart about it and making sure that you can look at the different facets of how to actually get it better and get in the hands of someone that knows how to help you. And again, I think I have a lot of information on Team Troponin, specifically about some of these kind of back injuries and how to go about restabilizing the area.
Yeah, for the listeners, I think we're the one site that has, full PT and rehab section with, I don't know anywhere else that has anything like that in the bodybuilding industry.
Well, and there aren't many PTs that actually understand both the idea of heavy loading from, the power building or powerlifting approach combined with bodybuilding that requires the mobility, because they really, both sports have very different demands. On one hand, with strength sports or even getting strong, training in the gym, you want stability. But then with bodybuilding, if you get too rigid, you can't pose, you can't rotate, you can't find most of the positions you need to get in to be on stage. And so not only having a PT, but one that kind of looks at both requirements of different sports being so different, is because you'll go on Team Troponin and there's going to be a lot of information about how to be more stable, but then there's also a lot of information on how to be more mobile so that you can hit your posing and presentation and all of that.
When it comes to back injuries, why do you think that they are this boogeyman, really? I mean, personally, oh, that's fair. But I mean, even among, like, it's among lifters and Gen Pop, it seems like it's this boogeyman. And, like, personally, I worry a little bit more about knees, and I worry way more about anything that happens around my hips. And maybe that's partially because I have very long legs and a short torso, so I just have more torque around my hips compared to someone with an opposite build. But, why do you think that is? Like, do people just forget that they have these?
I don't remember being quite the boogeyman 20 years ago. I really do feel like the fact that Ronnie Coleman is so well known, the NO Explode stuff, where, like, he was the main, everyone who ever touched a weight, because, the NO Explode stuff was like what all 15 years ago was what every college kid was taking. And so they knew Ronnie Coleman right at the time that he was falling apart because of back injuries. Because, I mean, like 20 years ago, I really don't remember it being like the boogeyman. I don't. Or 25 years ago. I mean, it's hard to remember that far back, but I don't feel like it being like it is now until like the last 15 years, which maybe it's coincidental, but I feel like that had the fact that everyone learned who he was right at the time his body was falling apart played a role.
I think even outside of competitive bodybuilders, like, you go to a gym and people who don't know Ronnie Coleman still have this fear of, like, I don't want to hurt my back. Right? Like, you ask someone what they're scared of hurting, and probably 9 out of 10 people are going to say they don't want to hurt their back. And I think some of that is because it's so vital to how we function, where it's such a central core, almost visceral component of who we are and how we operate, that everything else kind of stems off of it. So if you're not moving well through a part of your body that you use for almost everything, it's pretty invasive for the rest of life. And I think that, quite frankly, just because we've changed so much as a culture and as a society, with so much sitting and things like that, I think that's definitely contributed to things too, to where, quite frankly, I think we're more fragile than we probably were 15 or 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So I guess, long story short, no, back injuries are not the nail in the coffin at all.
Oh man, yeah, no, it's
yeah, unless maybe you, like, take a bullet to the spine and you become paralyzed or something.
If I had to pick an injury for myself, and I've had many, I would, if someone's like, you have to pick an injury, what do you want? I'd say, give me a herniated disc. No, I'm not kidding. And, like, it's crazy to me because even Chow, gosh, maybe like a year and a half ago, was like, oh, I herniated my disc, I shouldn't train, I can't do anything anymore. And, like, the reality is, yes, like you have to modify, but there's so much that you can still do. And so much of, we've really deviated from the biomechanical model of pain, almost to where we've gone too much on that pain science. If you look at pain management from the last 20 years, we've gone from very much the biomechanical model, meaning don't flex or extend or rotate or any of that, to more of a functional model, to a purely pain science model. And those are two very different ends of the spectrum. So we've swung so far this way to this pain science. What I mean by that is, like, you'll talk to clinicians who literally, I kid you not, Adrian Lowe can go and talk someone out of pain. So there's a video of him from maybe like 5-6 years ago. He just pulled someone from the audience who had back pain for like, 6 or 8 years or something like that, and literally just talked them out of their pain. It's an extreme example, but I think we've gone so far towards this pain science end of the spectrum that we've completely negated the biomechanics. But I think that so many bodybuilders have hung on in this biomechanical state so much that we almost forget that there are these other two components of pain management and actually getting better. If I had to pick an injury, man, some people may crucify me for saying this, but I would take a herniated disc over any of the other soft tissue injuries I've had.
Makes sense.
I'd take a broken heart. I've seen more great physiques made from a broken heart than.
That implies that you have a heart. As a coach, it takes away all the carbs and fats.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm just making a joke about all the guys that get divorced and then finally get in shape.
Okay, here's a good one. Someone asked, mini cuts in the off season. Do you ever do them? When are they necessary? And I'll just say, from Danny's and my experience so far, we've both had 2 nearly year-long off seasons, or basically it was that we competed. We've always done summer shows, so it was summer show, full off season prep, summer show, repeat, with no mini cut in between. And each prep's been, they're never easy, but they've gone better and better every time. So
I don't like mini cuts. Oh, well, I think if you need a mini cut, you're doing things wrong. And I think it stems from a couple of reasons. It's the bulking. People, especially like the internet, the dirty bulk, or the people, you can't get big on chicken and rice. It's all the garbage on the internet that's always wrong. And you should always do the opposite of anything you read on Reddit or any of the forums. Not entirely. And I spend a lot of time on Reddit. I don't go to the bodybuilding forums very much. The website's a great site, but the same age applies. If the reason that they're on Reddit, I don't even want to dog anyone, but the reason they're giving advice for free anonymously is because it hasn't worked for them yet. If it worked for them, they wouldn't be giving it for free or anonymous. They'd be a bodybuilder. Anyways, I think the biggest thing is because people try to gain weight. You shouldn't. Well, I think getting big is simple. It's like a 2-step approach. One, teach the body to eat more and more clean, whole, good food, protein sources. Like kill it, pick it, kill it, grow it should be your diet mantra. And I've trademarked that phrase, although I'll never use it. But I want to write a book on it, because if you can't pick it from a tree, grow it in a garden, or hunt it for meat, you shouldn't be eating it. That's plain and simple. Those are your foods. And if you stick to those foods, then all you need to do, provided the macros are set up properly, is find a way. Every time the body lets you eat more food, continue to try to eat more and more of those pick it, kill it, grow it foods without getting fat. And then in the gym, just get strong as shit, in a bodybuilding rep range. And if over a 2-year span, you double your calorie intake, you're not fat, and you're strong as fuck, you're going to be big whether you want to or not. And you're not going to be fat, so you don't got to do a mini cut. But that's the biggest thing, is because people try to gain weight, and gaining weight means getting fat, because you don't gain weight. Even gain David's grown like rapidly, but even I use Nick Walker as an example. Nick Walker has grown faster than like any human in human history, the most rapid rate of muscle growth ever. His first show was 2012. 10 years later, he's gained like a little over 100 pounds since that first show. So he's gained like 12 pounds a year. That's it. That's the fastest any human's ever grown. So these guys trying to add 30 pounds in 6 weeks, that doesn't happen. It doesn't, you don't gain muscle. You can get fat in 6 weeks. That's the biggest thing, is that people try to get fat. I don't know why. Because they want to see the scale move. Don't worry about the scale. Focus on increasing your food intake without getting fat. Without like when you're lean, you can tell when you're watery. You can tell I'm watery. I'm holding water from day to day. if you ever carry so much body fat in the off season that you can't tell whether you're watery or not from day to day, you're too fat. And like when you're in prep and you can really tell. If you're a good bodybuilder, you can tell year round. If you ever are so fat that you can't tell if you're holding water one day, that's because there's too much fat everywhere. You can't tell the water fluctuations. That's the key. But you should be focusing on eating more and more clean food and getting stronger in the gym, and you don't have to worry about it. And then two, like you guys said, with the year off season, I think the optimal structure for the most rapid progression as a bodybuilder, as a physique athlete is basically we'll start with contest prep, a 16-week contest prep. I think longer than that, you start getting, it gets dramatically more difficult after week 16, but a 16-week contest prep, a 4 to 6 week rebound after the contest, where you basically get to 75 to 85% of the gains you're going to get all year are done in that 6 week span. And you're going to be bigger than you were at the peak of last off season at the end of that, if you do it properly. Then if you're on PEDs, then a 4 to 8 week cruise where you make sure you're healthy, verify your blood work, and then roughly a 16-week off season where you do your base 16-week off season cycle where you focus on eating more and more good, clean food without getting fat, and find a way to beat the logbook in the gym in a bodybuilding rep range without changing your form. Make sure the muscle's getting stronger, not that you're just getting more biomechanically advantageous at each movement. Then another 4 to 8 week cruise, and then boom, you start your next prep. If you're not competing, then it should be a hard diet to get lean, not a mini cut, a hard diet to get lean enough to get the rebound. If you just do a mini cut, because we want to get under that 8 to 12% body fat so we can get the benefits of that rebound where we can add fat before we even become optimal, which we just talked about 10 minutes ago. If you're getting to 15% body fat and doing a mini cut to get back to 12%, then you're starting your next little off season burst where the second you gain even 1 pound of fat, you're no longer optimized for anabolic growth. So all you're doing, you're just basically spinning your wheels, and that's where the permabulkers come in. Those are the guys who stay in that 12 to 15% range and make very little progress because they're so worried about looking smaller in a shirt for 16 weeks that they never get lean enough to actually make legitimate progress. So if you're doing mini cuts, you're doing something wrong, because you shouldn't get fat enough to do that. Because if you're going to say, well, my off season 3 years, I said that's fine. You should still do a hard diet to get below 8%. Otherwise, you're not. The fastest way to get big for any future time, at any future date, the fastest way to get big at that future date is to get lean now. But
it sounds like you're speaking from the standpoint of purely adding size for competitive bodybuilding. But if we were going to peel off a layer of that and say someone wants to, like, they're just starting to feel kind of uncomfortable, or they have a vacation coming up and they just want to be a little bit leaner, things like that. What would you say?
I took it as and I know who asked the question, and that they are the competitor, the bodybuilder. Yeah, I mean that's a totally. If you're just trying to look good and you're not. Your goal isn't this type of progression, adding muscle continuously, and you just want to look good and look healthy, then your mini cuts you'd be like, I'm a little more relaxed with my diet, but you're not progressing then. You're just oscillating. I'm a little more relaxed with my diet, and then I lean out. So I'm a little more relaxed with my diet and I lean out, but you don't change the way you look. Those are the people who they don't change the way they look. They get a little bit leaner, they get a little bit fatter, but they're never progressive. And that's fine. I'm at that stage. I'm not looking to progress anymore. I'm just looking to not look terrible, and so that is a different thing. And I do mini cuts, I guess. Like, oh, hey, I gotta take my shirt off at the beach in 8 weeks. I better tighten things up a little bit. But I know I'm not making progress as far as musculature.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I was going to suggest that aside from people who just get too fat on a bulk, I'm wondering if a lot of the people who think they need mini cuts, they don't really need them. They've gotten stage lean or close to it, and that becomes their new standard, and they can't tolerate the feeling of getting so far away from that, even if they're still pretty much in that optimal range. Because having gone through a couple of your off seasons, like I didn't get overly fat in the off season, but I was, big and bloated that whole time, and it got uncomfortable. And do you think a lot of people just don't want to feel like that for the
and that's kind of a newer phenomenon. But when it was just bodybuilding, and most of your clients were focused on that, and the goal was add size. Since physique and classic and stuff have come along, you see that a lot more where guys are getting into the sport to look good. right? It used to be you got in the sport to get just friggin' huge, you know, and you understood that there were, you know, ebbs and flows and reasons for seasons, or like they're kind of always looking to get laid, I guess, which I don't fault them, but like that's they want that look, and they're not really trying to progress. They're not trying to add muscle. And so I answered that because I know who asked the question, and so I answered that person's question, I guess. But I guess depending on your goals, if you want to progress as far as adding muscle, a dramatic amount of muscle size long term, I don't think mini cuts are the way to go. I think the you know, full off season, hard diet till you get to the lean enough to benefit from the rebound is the approach. If you're just trying to look good and not, you don't really care about getting bigger, you just want to generally look good, then yeah, I mean, you don't really have another choice other than as your body drifts up, you got to diet a little bit to bring it back down. But I don't think you can expect to do that and make large amounts of progress in muscle growth over time.
Fair enough. So one more to wrap this up, and we could probably do a whole podcast on this, but somebody asked something kind of, I don't even know if they asked it as a question, but they wanted us to talk about applying a bodybuilding work ethic to basically other areas of your life and improving your quality of life in terms of, you know, finance, business, your career, family life, etc. So I guess without having a very specific question, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh God, that's my biggest pet peeve with this sport. Like how people haven't done that. Arnold's like one of the only. It's like if you do this sport, and especially if you've competed in this sport and you aren't hyper successful in all aspects of your life, that, I mean, I don't. They're like, there's nothing as hard as a contest prep. Nothing else in life is hard. Why are you not asking for promotion? I mean, unless you don't want to, but why are you not fighting for promotions? Why are you not starting a business? Why are you not taking new courses or learning new skills in your job? You know, you look at a guy like a Jay Cutler or even a Dexter Jackson, who's still, you know, like how can you be this self-motivated to get up on no sleep, to do cardio, and then go starve yourself all day and then go train your ass off in the gym and do cardio again, all not because you have to, not because you get fired if you don't, but you don't have to at all. No one will know if you did. No, you cannot do it. It's only self-motivation. How you can do that and not apply that to other aspects of your life it's mind-boggling to me. It's like it's a personal frustration of mine. Like I work with all these incredibly dedicated and motivated, self-motivated, hardworking people who outside of this sport just leave that. You know, I go to work and I fuck off, or I don't even try to get promotion, or I don't try to get new education to improve my skill set. I don't try to start a business. I don't try to learn about, you know, my finances, or I don't even try to make money from this sport that I love and I'm good at. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry that if I just get a tiny little sliver of, you know, I can, a tiny little sliver, I can supplement my main income and improve my family's life and create a case for early retirement. I don't understand. I mean, I don't know, like, if they want to know how to apply it, you already apply.
I don't know if there's really a how. I mean, to me, it seems more like an issue of yeah. I mean, maybe they just don't care. I mean, I don't feel this way, but I could see how you could be of that mind where, like you mentioned, how bodybuilding is the thing that nobody's paying attention to anyway. Like nobody cares that they won their state show that they suffered for so badly, but they cared about it, and it was, you know, probably more fulfilling to them to work hard at that than maybe it is at a job where they have to deal with office politics and a bunch of bullshit and all sorts of things that are outside of their control. Like the nice thing about
but that's the thing, they don't have to.
True.
If you can compete, if you can get in shape well enough to win a difficult bodybuilding competition or physique competition, then you don't have to stay at your job, because you can apply that same level of dedication to whatever you do want to do. And I'm speaking to this as a person who I'm picturing a person who doesn't like their lot in life and doesn't like their lot outside of bodybuilding and is complaining about it. If you're someone who, and there are people, you know, I've worked with people who are in the same position 15, 17, 20 years, and they don't look for promotion. They don't, because they know that they can come in an hour late every day and no one says everything. They can leave it at noon on Friday and hit the bar and no one says anything. They've done their job for 20 years. They can phone it in and they just want to do it till they retire. And that's perfectly fine. I'm reading this as someone who's, you know, asking about, like, you know, I want more from life. You know, I have this ethic and work ethic and mindset. You know, why is the rest of my life not falling in line with that? And I think it's difficult while you're in the sport of bodybuilding because it's such a time consuming. While you're competing, it's extremely difficult. But once the competition years are over, I think all you do is take that same mindset.
Well, go ahead, Amy.
I think there's a lot to be said too for someone who really does struggle with self-doubt. Like it's one thing to come into the sport and put in the work to, do the things that you have complete control over. But even as someone who's, done pretty well and achieved a lot, there's a lot that, and you sent me an email a couple of weeks ago where you were like, you need to like take a look at yourself in the mirror for a second. And I think that for people who really do struggle with self-doubt, you don't see the work ethic that you have. You don't see your own strengths and you don't see what you actually are capable of. And I think that for some of us, the sport could be a conduit to start to tap into that, but I don't think it really hits us until later. We're like, wow, like I actually like did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's funny what you said about before or after or during or after your competitive years, as far as when you apply all these lessons in work ethic. I think part of maybe one of the things currently influencing my decision, my waffling over doing USAs, is that in the middle of prep, it is hard to apply yourself to almost anything else. And I've started out every prep saying, no, I'm going to have this like burst of productivity. I'm going to just do everything. And that actually works out okay, like maybe the first 8 weeks or so. But once you get really deep in it, like standing up is hard. And
you do. It's misleading, but you do have a burst of productivity because you still go to work every day.
Sure.
And you do cardio and you pack all your meals and you do weight training. And so, that is the burst of
right. Like if you look at your total like output of stuff that I'm getting done in a day, yeah, it's a burst of productivity. But I don't think you necessarily need to wait until after your competitive years. I mean, like a good off season is also very time consuming and kind of all consuming at times. But if you can get through a prep and like just rack up a list of things that like you really want to accomplish afterwards, you've got a ton more energy and a ton more time given back to you that you can now apply to those things.
Oh yeah, if you think like in prep, if you're doing an hour of cardio a day,
mm-hmm.
and you in the off season and you remove that hour of cardio and nothing else changes, the amount of things you can accomplish by spending an hour of dedicated work on something you're passionate about, mm-hmm. 365 days is I mean, that's all it takes to create an entirely new life for yourself. I mean, that really is, and I think and actually, I know we were kind of wrapping up, but another good question I got was asking about goals, and how do you know whether you can, like, I think they were saying like they want to be a pro bodybuilder, and how do you know if you have what it takes? And I think that's, if you have a goal, and just look at things numerically. If you're at 1 and you want to get to 100, and 3 years have passed and you're only at 2, you know what the end goal is. And so if like you see people who want to be a pro bodybuilder, but they haven't changed their physique in 3 years, something needs to change to get to that level. And I think the biggest mistake people have is they always have that end goal in mind. I want this. Like the one person, I want to be a bodybuilding coach. Well, what did you do today to take a step closer to being a bodybuilding coach? What did you learn about nutrition? What did you learn about contest prep? And people don't do that. They have this end goal. I want this, but they don't break it down. Well, I want this in 10 years. That's 3,650 days. That I need this much progress divided by 3,650 means every day I need to average this much forward movement. And that's like that hour a day. If you just replace that in the off season, that's enough to I don't know what you want to do. Maybe you want to write a book. You spend an hour of dedicated time, 7 days a week working on a book. Within a year, you'll have a book. And a year seems like a long time. But last year was 2021. And everyone can think of things they did last summer. It doesn't feel like an eternity ago. And a year from now is going to happen, whether you wrote the book or not, or whatever you want to do. And so you don't need, it's not like you need, if you've done a contest prep, you've done the hardest thing there is. You really have. If you've done that, if you don't want to do other things in life, but I'm assuming people wanted that because they asked the question. I don't think you would ask the questions of applying that same work ethic, financially, business, production-based, unless you wanted that. If you've done a contest prep and succeeded and got in contest shape, you've won. You've done the hardest thing. No, all you have to do is take that same mentality and apply it. You don't have to, like, there's no mystery, just apply it. What did it take to get in the contest prep? You prepped your meals every day. You did your cardio, you did your weight training. So now we're in the off season and you're still training. Now, so in prep, you went to work, you did your cardio, you prepped your meals, and you did your training and your posing and everything else. But now it's the off season, so you still have to go to work. You still do your weight training, but you don't have to do your cardio. You still have to prep your meals, and you don't have to do all the posing and stuff. So you've got two big chunks of time, probably an hour and a half worth of stuff every day that you were doing that you no longer have to do. Just apply that hour and a half to whatever you want to, financial, business, or production based, whatever those are. Financial, okay, an hour and a half a day. Like, I need to make money. I don't know how to make money. Well, spend an hour and a half a day learning about how do I make money as a side business. Maybe you can go there. I think there's like a big market for old Matchbox cars. It's the summer. Spend an hour and a half every day looking for garage sales and buy up boxes of Matchbox cars for $1 for a whole box of 1,000 Matchbox cars. Then tomorrow, spend an hour and a half on eBay finding out what each of those Matchbox cars are worth. Probably $1 to $20 a piece. You've got 1,000 of them. You spent $15 on. Now you potentially have $20,000 worth of Matchbox cars. Well, now the next day, spend an hour and a half listing all those Matchbox cars on eBay. The next day, spend an hour and a half packing up your $15,000 worth of Matchbox cars for people who bought them because of whatever. And maybe there isn't a Matchbox car market, but there's a market for everything. If or go to garage sales and buy old vintage clothes. I mean, there's an hour and a half. You can change your life with an hour and a half a day.
Mm-hmm. If you prioritize it. And that was the other point I was going to make, is that when you're in prep, things like cardio, meal prep, training, like there's no if, they will get done, and a lot of them get done first thing in the morning. And that's something that I struggle with. If I have a goal, but then I have all these other things that, like, they're work related oftentimes, like, oh, I got to get to that first, and I don't give the thing that I really care about that will propel me forward in the future the prioritization that it needs. So it's like getting one thing done the first thing in the day is like infinitely different from just not doing it day after day.
And that's so motivated too. People always talk about, I think we did this in the last podcast, where people say, like, I need to get motivated and make these progress. No, that's not how it works. The progress creates the motivation.
Right.
Get your ass up, do that. And I start telling you, when you make your first $10,000 selling Matchbox cars that you bought for $15, you're going to be motivated to get up and go hit some garage sales this weekend.
And you'll probably start to enjoy the process involved therein, which is, I think, another, like, I won't say it's essential, but to me it all but seems essential, especially being someone who is process oriented. Like, I can only make myself do something that I don't like for so long. But and like this applies to bodybuilding too. I have a lot of people, they'll just look at me, the first thing they ask is, how long have you been training? And what I hear is, how long will it take me to get like that? And I'm thinking, if that's the first question that you're asking, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that if I ask someone who's self-made and really successful in business, if the first thing I ask them is, how long did it take you to make the money you have now? They're probably like, this guy's a joke. He's not really serious.
Well, and that's what people do, because then they say, well, I've been doing it for 20 years. And like, I'm gonna go to work every day and do this side gig and make no money for the first 8 years and then barely pay,
But if it took you 20 years, would, like, 20 years from now, would you rather be in that position, or 20 years from now, would you rather still be?
20 years is going to happen, one or the other. You could be telling some kid on the street why you're driving the Lamborghini you're driving, with the same way you asked that guy the question in 20 years, or you could still be the one asking the questions. And speaking of Matchbox cars, if any of the listeners know where I could find a mid to late 1980s all steel construction Voltron force doll, I've been looking for one for about 15 to 20 years, and all the goddamn eBay ones that insist they're all steel are not, they're plastic. I had one when I was a kid. It was my favorite toy. I don't have one anymore, and I'd love to buy one. I would be that idiot paying, if you found it for $3 at a garage sale, I'd be the idiot paying $150 for it. So if anyone knows of one, and you want to start your application of bodybuilding work ethic and mindset into financial success, there's your way. Find me that all steel construction mid to late 80s Voltron force doll.
Will do.